And welcome back. It's Jason Walter here. I want to give you guys an update regarding the Florida housing market. This is because the Florida Association of Realtors just announced December's numbers at the time of this video here. They're reporting huge decreases in home sales, yet huge increases in housing inventory. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I have so much to share regarding the Florida housing market here. Again, this is from the Florida Realtors here, and this is actually for December 2022. And again, we're only talking about single family houses in today's video here. So let's talk about each of these different metrics here, and then I'm going to take a deep dive into each of these stats right here. So closed home sales decreased by 36.1% on a year-over-year basis. That's from December 2021. Going from just under 30,000 home sales in December 2021 to just over 19,000 last month, a decrease of 36% on a year-over-year basis here. So the number of properties that sold for all cash decreased by 38.6%, going from about 9,100 down to 5,600 closed home sales in which the home buyer used all cash. They didn't use a loan, a decrease of 38.6%. Here's a stat I'm actually going to take a deep dive into in today's video, because when talking about year-over-year changes in home sale prices, the number here, a 5.6% increase, doesn't really tell us the whole story, because home prices have been going down ever since really the spring and summer months last year. So I'll share some more stats regarding that here in just a little bit. But when talking about the median sold price in the state of Florida, it went from $373,990 to approximately $395,000 in December 2022, and that's an increase of 5.6%. Some other stats I want to share as well with you guys is the median percent of original list price received. This is more or less the average sale price to list price ratio, but looking at the original list price and not the final asking price. I really love how they share the original list price and not the final list price, because this really tells us based on the original asking price. So that actually includes price reductions here in this number right here. So for December 2022, that percentage was only 95.5%, meaning home sellers in December sold their houses for approximately 5% below their original asking price. Whereas 1 year ago, they were selling their houses for, on average, for their asking price at 100%. And speaking of price reductions, have a look at this, because according to altosresearch.com, for the nation as a whole, the percent of price reductions right now is at 35%. So approximately 3 of every 10 houses listed for sale have already reduced their asking prices, according to Altos nationwide, 35%. But when looking at Florida, though, the share of price drops right now is at 40%. So a little bit higher than the nation's averages. But look at this as well, because at 40% right now for the state of Florida, this is much higher compared to the same time period 1 year ago, because 1 year ago, the percent was only 19.55%. So share in one single year went from about 20% to approximately 40% in the state of Florida. Also, 2 years ago, the share was about 23%, and 3 years ago, the share was about 32%, back in January 31st in 2020, which is obviously pre-COVID. And going back to the Florida Association of Realtors report right here, that's why I really like how the Florida Realtors here shares the percentage as the original list price received and not the final list price received, because this really includes price reductions right here at 95.5%. Home sellers selling their houses for about 5% below asking. Here's another really interesting trend as well, because days on the market, they call this the median time to contract. This is the time period when a home seller lists their home for sale until when they ultimately accept an offer from a home buyer. That's days on the market. So days in the market is at 34 days right now. 1 year ago, it was only 12 days. That's a giant increase of 183.3% on a year-over-year basis here. So houses taking much longer to sell compared to 1 year ago. In fact, nearly 3 times longer compared to 1 year ago, going from 12 days to approximately 34 days. Also, in regards to the number of new pending home sales, that decreased by 31.5%, a giant decrease in the amount of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. Interesting enough, though, new listings have decreased by 17.7%. So we're seeing a huge decrease in closed home sales, as well as new pending home sales, and also a decrease by double digits in new listings. But despite the fact we've been seeing fewer new listings, active listing inventory has increased 117% on a year-over-year basis. 1 year ago, there was approximately 30,000 houses for sale in Florida. And fast forward to December 2022, there was just over 65,000. And that's an increase of almost 117%. Also, the months of inventory is sitting at 2.7 months. 1 year ago, it was only 1 month, and that's a giant increase of 170.0%. And by the way, what this number means right here at 2.7 months, this means it would take approximately 2.7 months to sell all the houses listed for sale in Florida, given the current sales pace. 2.7 months. 1 year ago, it was 1 month. In other words, the month supply has nearly tripled compared to 12 months ago. So let's have a detailed look at closed home sales in the state of Florida going back to 2018. So let's first talk about the number of closed home sales for the entire year of 2022 compared to 2021. And that's an 18% decrease compared to 2021. So we have 18% fewer closed home sales last year compared to the year before that. Also on a year-over-year basis, though, it decreased by 36.1%. This is the decrease from December 2021 through December 2022, declining by 36%. So there's a few things I want to touch regarding the trends we're seeing right now, because going from 17,009 closed home sales in November going to just over 19,000, that's actually a 13% increase in closed home sales from November. However, though, compared to 1 year ago, we're down by about 36%. So we did see an increase of 13% compared to last month, but comparing levels 1 year ago, down by 36%. Also, when looking at these trends right here, going back to 2018, besides last month, which was November 2022, December closed home sales were the lowest number of home sales since January of 2020. So 19,158. Looking at this table right here, or this chart right here, the lowest numbers since January of 2020. So besides November, when there's approximately 17,000 closed home sales, the levels right now at 19,158 are the lowest levels since January 2020. One thing I do want to mention, though, is that it's entirely normal to see decreases in closed home sales each December, because that's our seasonality of our housing market. But when looking at these trends right here, we're looking at December closed home sales. Last December was the fewest amount of closed home sales since at least 2018. Because back in December of 2021, there was approximately 30,000 closed home sales. Back in 2020, in December, there was also approximately 30,000. And back in December 2019, there was approximately 25,000. In December 2018, there was approximately 20,000 closed home sales. Again, last December, there was 19,158. Let's also talk about the number of cash sales in the state of Florida. Again, that's a decrease of 38.6% on a year-over-year basis this December. When looking at 2022 as a whole, there was a decrease of 12%. 92,000 closed home sales that came from a cash buyer, but that's a decrease of 12% compared to 2021. Also, something else I noticed is that cash sales actually increased slightly from November, going from 5,212 to 5,615. But we're looking at December closed home sales. This is actually the lowest levels since December of 2018. So we're looking at December closed home sales for cash buyers, the lowest levels since December of 2018. Also, as you can see right here in this table, at 5,615, this is more or less half the number of closed home sales that came from cash buyers back in March 2022. And back then, that was a 10% increase compared to 1 year ago. And now again, it has decreased by 39%. Huge decreases in cash sales in the state of Florida. Also, in regards to the number of cash sales as a percentage of closed home sales, approximately 29.3% of all closed home sales last December came from a cash buyer. So more or less 3 of every 10 closed home sales came from an all-cash buyer. And there really hasn't been too much movement regarding this percentage here, because the percentage of all-cash buyers hovered a range of 28% to around 34% over the past 12 months. However, when looking at current levels right now at 29.3%, this is actually higher than December 2019, as well as December 2018, when the share was approximately 25%. Okay, changing gears slightly here, let's talk about the median sold price here in the Florida housing market. The median sold price is at $395,000, and that's actually a 5.6% increase on a year-over-year basis. But for the year as a whole, last year, 2022, home prices increased by 15.7%. There's a few things I want to mention regarding this table right here, because at $395,000, the median sold price in Florida as of December is a 10-month low, the lowest median sold price ever since February 2022. It's also the 6th consecutive monthly decrease in home prices in the state of Florida as well. This is because home prices have been more or less decreasing ever since June of last year, when the median sold price was $420,000. Therefore, when looking at the median sold price in Florida from June 2022 through December, that's actually a 6% decrease. So compared to the peak last year, which was in June in the state of Florida, home prices have decreased by about 6%. For comparison's sake, when looking at single-family houses in California for December, home prices have decreased by about 14% from the peak we saw back in 2022. And actually in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, home prices have decreased by about 30% from the peak of 2022. So this decrease of 6% from June 2022 is not as bad as the 14% decrease that we're seeing here in California. Also, when comparing year-over-year changes this December, again, home prices increased by 5.6% in Florida. In the state of California, we saw a 3% decrease on a year-over-year basis. Therefore, the housing market in Florida is actually holding up a little bit better than in California, to say the least. And lastly, when comparing home prices on a national level compared to the highs we saw back in June of last year, home prices nationwide are down about 10%, whereas in Florida, we're down about 6%. Let's also talk about the median sale price to list price ratio here in the state of Florida. So for the year as a whole, in 2022, home sellers sold their houses for the original asking price. That's what 100% means right here. But for December, though, look at this drastic change, because in December, that ratio was 95.5%, meaning home sellers sold their houses for about 4.5% below their original asking price. Quite a bit different than the numbers we saw back in December all the way until July, where on average, home sellers sold their houses for the original asking price. And this trend really changed in August, because ever since August, home sellers were selling their houses for below their asking price on average. One thing I do want to mention regarding this metric right here is this is definitely a lagging indicator, just like the median sold price, because this is based on closed home sales, which is really what our market was like approximately 1 to 2 months ago when the home seller accepted an offer from a home buyer. I also want to discuss how fast or how slow houses are selling in the Florida housing market. So for the year as a whole, it took approximately 14 days to sell a house, and that's an increase of 16.7% compared to 2021. Look at this drastic change, though, ever since really the summer months this year, or summer months in 2022. In December, the median days in the market was at 34 days, a giant increase of 183.3% on a year-over-year basis. In fact, days in the market has increased by triple digits for 4 consecutive months, going back to September 2022. Again, triple-digit increases on a year-over-year basis for 4 consecutive months. Also at 34 days right now, taking approximately 34 days to sell a house, that's more or less double back in August, when days in the market was only 16 days. One way to interpret this data right here is that it's taking approximately twice as long to sell a house in the state of Florida in December compared to August last year. Also, when looking at December 2021's levels, days in the market was 12 days. This means it's taking approximately 22 days longer to sell a house compared to 1 year ago. Additionally, when looking at this chart at the bottom right here, at days on the market at 34 days, this is actually the highest levels since July of 2020. Let's also have a look at new pending home sales, because for the year as a whole, it decreased by 21.1%. In December, it decreased by 31.5% compared to December 2021. Huge decreases in contracts being signed between buyers and sellers, down by 31.5%. Also at 16,692 new pending home sales. This is actually the lowest number of new pending home sales since December of 2018. You can see that right here because this December at 16,692, the lowest levels since at least December 2018. Another trend we're seeing right now in the state of Florida is that new listings have decreased on a year-over-year basis for 4 consecutive months, going back to September 2022, decreasing by double digits every single month through December 2022. So this December, there was just over 19,000 new listings. This is actually the lowest number of new listings since at least 2018. Going back to at least 2018, the lowest levels since at least 2018, going back as far as our data goes right here. Also at 19,190, this is more or less half the number of new listings that we saw this June or last June at approximately 40,244. So when looking at this chart for 2022, we've been seeing this huge fallout in new listings ever since July of last year, which is of course much different compared to the past several years here, because really ever since 2018, new listings were more or less the same. Didn't really have too much fluctuations except for the winter months, of course, because in December each year we saw a huge decrease of new listings. But again, the current levels of this last December, the lowest levels since at least 2018. I also want to go over active listings or housing inventory in Florida as well, because that has increased by a whopping 116.8% on a year-over-year basis, a giant increase compared to December 2021. One thing I do want to mention though is that for December, there's approximately 65,786 active listings in the state of Florida as a whole, which is actually a decrease compared to November, going from approximately 70,000 active listings to approximately 66,000. Also, the current levels at 65,786. This is actually the lowest number of active listings going back to August of last year. One more thing I do want to touch regarding housing inventory in Florida though, is that the current levels right now is obviously much higher compared to 2020 as well as 2021. But current levels right now are much lower compared to 2019 when there was approximately 80,000 houses for sale. Now there's approximately 66,000, and also much lower compared to December of 2018 when there was just under 100,000 houses for sale. Now there's 66,000. We also can see this trend as well when looking at the month's supply, because the month's supply for December was 2.7 months, a giant increase of 170% on a year-over-year basis when the month supply was only 1 month. Look at this chart though, going back to 2018, 2.7 months, obviously much higher compared to the past couple of years, but actually lower than 2019 as well as 2018 when the month supply in 2018 was around 4 months. And back in 2019 in December, the month supply was just over 3 months. I also want to share this slide with you guys as well, because closed home sales by price range have been decreasing in virtually all markets or virtually all price segments here. We're not talking about huge decreases in a particular price range. We're talking about giant decreases in closed home sales in every price segment here. In fact, the biggest decrease in closed home sales were in the range of houses that sold in the range of $150,000 to just under $200,000. In the range of $150,000 to just under $200,000, decreasing by about 55% on a year-over-year basis. One thing I do want to mention regarding this is that keep in mind, the median sold price in the state of Florida for December was $395,000. So it makes sense we're seeing huge decreases in the range of $150,000 to $200,000. And because the median sold price in Florida was approximately $395,000, it makes sense we're seeing huge decreases in closed home sales for less than $300,000. There's a couple more slides I want to share regarding new listings as well as active listing inventory or housing supply in the state of Florida. So here's new listings by the initial asking price. Look at this difference here. For houses that are being listed for sale for over $1 million this December, it increased by 20.4% compared to December 2021. So a huge increase of houses being listed for sale for over $1 million compared to 1 year ago. We're also seeing a 6.6% increase of houses being listed for sale in the range of $600,000 to just under $1 million. However, though, on the opposite end of the spectrum here, for houses being listed for less than $600,000, we're actually seeing decreases compared to 1 year ago. Again, this makes sense given the fact that the average home price is around $400,000 in the state of Florida. But this increase of 20% for $1 million plus houses is definitely something worth mentioning here as well, though. Here's a look at active listings by current asking price. So these are houses being listed for sale and having a look by their price segments as well. Again, huge increases by triple digits for houses that have sold or houses that are for sale for over $300,000. But the biggest increase was actually in the range of $400,000 to just under $600,000, increasing by 160.2%. In contrast, for the number of houses for sale of less than $200,000, we're seeing decreases on a year-over-year basis here. In fact, the biggest decrease is a 22.7% decrease in the range of $100,000 to $150,000 properties. And lastly, I want to share the number of distressed properties in Florida because this is really kind of laughable. For traditional home sales for December, there was 19,047 regular home sales in the state of Florida. But for foreclosures and REOs or real estate owned properties, there was only 88 closed home sales. For short sales, there was only 23. So this is really telling us that we're seeing a lack of distressed properties being sold because we're seeing over 19,000 traditional home sales. We're seeing less than 100 for REOs as well as short sales. And with that said, please comment below with your biggest takeaways from today's video. Also, if you guys got any value in this video whatsoever, then please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. Of course, I appreciate you. Hope you guys have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.